everybody, and welcome to another episode of Therapeutic Madness. I am your host, Mindy Vincent, and with me, as usual, is my co-host, Justin Areola. Justin, wave to the friends.
Hey, friend.
Yes, you might get confused who Justin is today because he's wearing a matching hat with our spectacular guest. Our guest today is my dear friend, Patrick Rezac. I call him Patrick because that's what my Bluetooth says when I say call Patrick Rezac. It says call Patrick Rezac. So I call him Patrick, but he is my friend, my colleague. He is an amazing person in recovery. He is an advocate. He is an ally. He is a trusted confidant. I can't say enough great things about Patrick. So with no further ado, Patrick Rezac, show yourself.
And I want to say that we called each other, Justin and I. We're not only wearing matching hats, but we're matching. We're wearing matching fucking undies too. So and shoes, but we're not showing our shoes because this is a clean show. So
actually, it's not a clean show. So if you'd like to show your shoes and your underwear, please feel free. Just kidding. If I tell Patrick to do that, he will do that. So we don't want to tempt Patrick. He will go right over the line.
That's funny.
So today we decided to get a show out right away because about sexual health and sexual health and recovery, sexual health just in how it relates to our everyday life. Because Patrick has this incredible story that has a lot of that laced into it, but especially after the release of our penis masks and some of the, I expected a little bit of negative feedback, which that's literally all there is. It's a little tiny bit of negative feedback. And it's always just around the fact that there's cartoon penises on a mask. And that's just crazy. But it's an exact, and here in Utah, when it finally hit the news here, people here were more offended than the whole rest of the world all put together. And that there's some cultural things in our state, and we'll talk about that. But we don't talk about sex in our state, and we certainly don't wear cartoon penises. So we decided that we need to do a show right away on sexual health, and we need to talk about the things that people are not talking about.
Right.
Agreed. So.
Like that people are fucking in recovery.
Yeah, that people are fucking, period.
They're fucking, period. Right.
Yeah, people have sex. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. And the big shocker for our friends in Utah, people have sex before marriage too. So, yeah. Patrick, why don't you tell us about yourself? Who the hell are you and how did you get here?
Oh, it's a loaded.
That's my favorite thing to ask people.
That's a loaded fucking question.
I try.
Well, and anybody that knows me would say this guy probably is the last guy we want to talk to about sexual health because my sexuality and my belief systems, I think the core issue that I had in my life that really led me to struggle is the core belief foundation is simply this, that people would only love me if I'm sexual. And that set me up for all these relationships that was just a perfect mirror of that and a perfect reflection of that. I mean, and when we have a belief like that, everything that I did served to reinforce that belief. So when people would see my value outside of that, or they would see something else, I would sabotage, I would pick holes, I would always get to go right back to validate that belief. And so, but I also learned the hard way through many, many years of struggle and understanding how that belief really was fueling my life in a destructive way, what it means to be sexually healthy and what it means. And I see that in the recovery world, I've been in and out of, I've been to 12-step groups. I've been to Scientology programs. I've done MRT. I've done faith-based. I've done a bunch of different modalities. And the sort of a common theme that I started to understand and see and notice is that we do a lot of this. Oh, your relapse has started and you're going to die because you shouldn't be doing that. And it's like, look, I'm fucking horny. I want to have sex and I'm going to do it. And it's so we isolate people with that. They become isolative because of that. And then they don't have a support system to talk about how to do it safely. What need you?
And in recovery, like in 12-step recovery, not me, but other people, like it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's just like commonplace in 12 steps to tell people that they can't have any relationships for the first year of recovery, even though in the big book on page 69, what a coincidence, it clearly states that we do not get involved in people's sexual relationships, that we do not have judgments, that we all have our own things. Like I could pull out the big book and quote it, but it's really interesting to me that that's something that gets attached to recovery a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And I think it's because people don't understand how they can talk about it. And people don't feel safe talking about it freely because we've been so shunned to talk about it for so long. So they don't know what to do with the info. And it makes them nervous. It makes people nervous. Like, I don't know how to support this person. And I don't even know the right questions to ask this person. But really, the questions that we should be asking ourselves, like I, in recovery, know that I'm ready to engage sexually with someone if I can ask these questions. What need am I trying to meet? Is what I'm about to embark on, whether or not it's a fucking one-time sexual circus or like a long-term affair. Like if we're going to be fucking hats off and doing it, is it good for the other person? Can they manage it? Like, what do I need to consider about the other person's safety? How do I need to navigate this so that they are also safe and that I'm honoring where they are? And what am I going to do if they get attached? Because someone ultimately always gets attached. And am I going to respect that? Or am I going to fucking shit all over it? Like, those are the questions. And if people are having that level of conversation with themselves in their support network, I think the outcomes would be better.
Yeah. So Patrick, tell us about your story. Like, where did this belief that you have come from that you only have value when you're being sexualized? And I mean, just tell us about your life. And then also, so many people don't know that you know, what an amazing human being you are and the kind of work that you've done here in Utah. So like, just start telling us about that.
Tell us a little bit about like the work you do and your background.
I appreciate that very much. So I've been in and out of recovery for a long time. I was raised in Hawaii, and we moved from Hawaii when I was 12 to go to California. And we moved to California because I was in so much trouble. I was going to a Catholic school and I fucking hated it. I took a KISS record for show and tell in the first grade. I took a Hustler centerfold for show and tell in the second grade. And I got sent to the principal's office. And Sister Lucy would tell me, right? And Sister Lucy would tell me, oh, God disapproves of you and you're a dirty little sinner. And and I was like, and I remember I looked at her one time and I said, you don't know what God thinks of me. You're just a mere woman. And she looked at me and she goes, and I got suspended that day. But the issue is that I had some people, and so I play music. And when I was 8, I was playing drums. It's actually in my book I'm writing. And I made the front page of the paper because I was playing this concert with all these adults. And we were playing like Blue Suede Shoes and like Led Zeppelin, Black Dog. And like we did these cover tunes. And this reporter was like, this little kid is like jamming out with these like adults. I'm going to fucking do a story about him. And all of a sudden, all these older girls wanted to play with me too. So I found myself in closets with, like Veronica and Melissa and Johnny and so-and-so. Like, and
how old were you?
I was 8, 9.
Oh my fucking hell.
Yeah. And I thought it was just cool. God. And I was in a lot of trouble. And I also had, first time I'm saying this publicly, but this is, I'm writing a book about all this. So, but I had a couple of cousins and I learned the wrong ways to relate to people sexually, at about 8. And so, and I was introduced to pornography very early at that same time. And so when these other older kids were also, introducing themselves to me sexually, I just thought it was normal. I thought that this is what these older kids, this is what you do. But it was also very confusing.
Not with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, definitely not. I just want to give that disclaimer because I actually know a lot of males who ended up being sexualized very early. And it's weird, as adults, they're kind of like, I had sex, I lost my virginity when I was 11. If you're having sex with an 11-year-old, you're a fucking pedophile.
Right.
Period. And if that's happened to you, you have been sexually abused as a child. I don't give a fuck what the circumstances were. No child can make decisions to be involved in sexual behavior in a healthy way. It's not even fucking possible.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And so that's
it infuriates me. It infuriates me.
Well, that's where the core
people up for the rest of their lives.
And that it does. So, and only until in the last 5 years, I really started to take out all the layers of, because that time, that's where that belief was born. People would only love me or value me if I was sexual. And that belief also creates room for the other belief below that, which is I'm only valuable if I'm sexual. And so if I only see myself that way, then my relationships, the whole foundation on my life going forward is based on that. And I never thought it was a problem. I just thought, what's fucking wrong with this? Like, this is my life. I'm a bisexual, kinky motherfucker, and I just do this. And it wasn't until later in life that I started to really recognize the damage I was causing myself with that belief system. And I had to address that belief before I could even enter any type of quality recovery. And so I had a much older girlfriend too when I was 17, and she was 28. And I didn't see the problem at the time. My parents were like, we're gonna have her arrested, and they saw the problem. But I didn't see it. I thought that she was just like, thought it was cool. I was playing in a band. We were selling out clubs, and I just thought, oh, this is just this hot chick, and we're in love, you know?
You're like, well,
but I had no idea that at that time how much I was being violated and exploited. And how that was setting me on a trajectory that was very devastating for me.
Oh, that makes me just want to hug you, Patrick.
Freezing up a little bit. Or you meaning to be in slow motion? Like,
I didn't put it in slow motion.
I don't know.
But I wanted to check in with Justin because just a minute ago when we were talking about, being sexualized young and the impact it has on males, Justin was raising his hand. Justin, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so I'm just sitting here shocked actually to listen to some of Patrick's stories and the way that you talk about abuse, and think to myself, I was pretty big for a kid. Like I hung out with older kids. I was the same size. I was buying beer in high school when I was 17. I had an older girlfriend in high school who would come pick me up from high school. Who was old enough to drink. I had very early sexual experiences and exposure to sexuality as well. When I was 13 or 14, one of the girls that I was seeing who was 18, her boyfriend showed up at my house and wanted to fight me. My mom answered the door, and I'm sitting in the downstairs playing video games, and this guy shows up.
Like 13-year-olds do,
Yeah, and he was like 24, 25.
Oh my God.
And he shows up and sees this, 14-year-old kid. And so it's just funny to hear so many similarities, because I was exposed to sexuality very early on, because I hung out with a lot of older kids. My cousins were all older, and we have a wide family network, and so I had some experiences in my family as well. Just kids, and I've always kind of chalked it up to like kids as we try to we start maturing and our body's changing, and we're trying to figure out what the hell is all this. And kids like interact with other kids. And so I've always kind of kept it in this like innocent, like kids have experimentation. But now that when I was sitting here thinking about this, I had a girl who was 16 when I was 12 that would come by the house when I was at my grandma's house and ask about me. And, we'd goofed around in a trailer at one point. And so, there's a lot of similarity there to the fact of just being exposed to sexuality at an early age. And for me, like, it was always like, oh, you're the man if I have sexual expertise, or if I have a history, or if I've already been to this place sexually, then, my friends would ask me questions, and I was the cool kid, right? And I didn't want to be the only one that didn't know what was being talked about when these kids were having these discussions or talking about, getting this girl. And so it's interesting to hear your guys' perspective, because I've always kind of just had that in my mind. Is like, I started young, but I feel pretty good about where I'm at now. But as we've had some discussions in the past. Like, I just didn't realize, how much of a detriment that was to be started at such a young age.
Well, what's weird about it is if it happened to a female, nobody would think twice about the fact that it was sexual abuse.
Right.
But when it happens to males, it's that whole lie that we tell boys from the time that they are fucking born, that their worth comes from how much money they make, how many chicks they screw.
That's right.
And how good they are at sports. And that's where men get their value. And if they are lacking in any of those three areas, or let alone all three, that they are tormented by society. There's a whole bunch of things to go with it. But women would never be considered non-victims if somebody had sex with them when they were 11.
Are you saying that that's not true?
Am I saying what part's not true?
Those three things, that's not true?
I think that people have worth that's way deeper than those things. But I have seen, because, I treated purely men for the first several years of my career as a therapist. And I have seen how deeply sexual conquests damage men. It is where men, it is probably the top thing, I bet, I think where men find their value. And it also causes them to act in behaviors that often make them complete fucking douchebags on these quests, these conquests for pussy. And then women become cold and cold-hearted because men are douchebags. But I'm also a firm believer that a man got hurt somewhere along the way before he became that douchebag. If you ever listen to Sam Kinison Wild thing, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So,
yeah, no, I think you're right on the money in the fact that, you know, especially as I hung out with some of my older cousins, it's like, you know, even down to, you know, hold your drink this way because chicks think that's cool. If you know, you don't want to look like a nerd, or, you know, you're hanging out at the pool and you're daydreaming about these girls in bikini. You know what I mean? Like the whole culture in that day and age of me growing up was geared around, you know, how many girls can you hook up with, or at least like you, right? And you know, early sexuality. It's very interesting to hear this dynamic now because, you know, I realize that, you know, I do have some narratives around that, and that has caused some issues in my past relationships. And I've also had issues with like trusting, you know, the people that I'm with, and just thinking like, well, everybody's screwing everybody, so, you know, those type of things, right? No,
which isn't true. Like, maybe it's, for some people, like, that is really a true experience, but then they carry on with these narratives when, you know, that's not necessarily true, but it's damaging, right? Like my self-defeating behavior is inability to trust. So even though it's not necessarily around sexual issues, like, I don't trust people as far as I can throw them, typically.
But, and I think I'm in the same boat, especially from a mate standpoint, right? Like, I've had problems with monogamous relationships and the other person being involved with relationships very early. You know, for some of my very first serious relationships, you know, I was all in and they were, you know, all over. And that kind of set the tone for the rest of my relationships, where I was just like, well, shit, they're not going to be faithful. So, you know, neither one of us have to worry about that, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's shaped my sexuality now in a stance that I'm way more forgiving of behaviors that probably shouldn't be forgiving per se.
Right.
Right.
Patrick's like, I relate, huh?
Well, no, it's totally. I don't think people, and especially in with men, when I facilitate a one-way group like in a men's program, and I share with them some of these experiences, like, I mean, it leads into a natural progression for some people. Like for me, it led into domestic violence, and then I was sexually assaulted at gunpoint by a motel owner and his son when I was 35, and I didn't expect that to occur to me at the time. I was really anticipating. I looked like this. I wasn't like dressed up in some crazy, you know, drag outfit or anything, you know, outlandish. I just was myself at 4 a.m. in a motel. And
at 4 a.m. in a motel. I'm sorry, Patrick. When you said at 4 a.m. in a motel, I was like, okay, so you
in Oakland,
Patrick, you know where you should and shouldn't be at 4 a.m. And I love you.
Yeah.
That face that you just made, maybe.
I just think, like, I mean, because Patrick's such a good friend of mine. Patrick's seriously one of my best friends. I love him so much. He means so much to me. And when I think about Patrick, even at a motel, everything inside of me wants to go get in a car and go to the motel and snatch him up. Like, so I can't help it. I'm like, don't you go to motels at 4 a.m, even though Patrick's not going to motels at 4 a.m. now.
I'm not going to motels at 4 a.m. It's not.
I'm protective of Patrick. I can't help it.
They're definitely not the place for me to be. So sexual health and recovery is a very fucking, it's a serious topic that people should be talking about. And we have to show people about the comfort level. Like if I can say in a men's group, like, look, I was sexually assaulted at gunpoint, okay? And this is what I did to get over it. And I view them as like, I'm forgiven, I've done all that. Every single time a guy comes up to me afterwards and goes, can I share something with you for the first time? And I'm like, that's the fucking thing that you need to talk about in treatment. Okay. If you have the luxury and the privilege to be in a treatment center, because that's a luxury and a privilege in this fucking world. So let's not skate over that fact either.
Right. If you've got to go to treatment, you're a lucky bastard.
Totally. And if that's the one thing that you just shared with me in this moment, then that's the thing you need to be working on, because it's that one thing that we don't want to fucking talk about. or if we try to bring it up, like, oh, let's not talk about that. Let's deal with the drug use, and all that shit will resolve. And that couldn't be further than the truth. That's not the way it works.
And being a therapist who's worked primarily with males in residential treatment, mind you, when you're in residential treatment, I'm with these guys at least 40 hours out of the week. I see them more than I see my own children, right? So like, I spend a lot of time with them. I get very close to them. We have really good relationships, you know, and yet sexual abuse or like issues in their sexual recovery is the one thing that they're always most hesitant to talk about.
Yeah.
And if they even talk about it at all. I know people who will take that stuff straight to the grave with them, you know, but it is so awkward to talk about sexual stuff, especially here in Utah, you know, like
Utah. Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that people, if like I wasn't raised, so I didn't come from a family dynamic that had lots of conversation about sex. I had to learn sort of the hard way. Mm-hmm. But I noticed here in Utah, especially with my work with our work, what we do, and educating people in treatment centers about sexual health and STD prevention and HIV and all that stuff. As soon as somebody in the room just has the fucking balls to say, yeah, you know what? I used to suck cock for money and dope. I did that. Or, yeah, you know what? You're not the only one that did that. I did that. Or let me just, okay, like no one's talking about this, but look, if you ate somebody out, you got to swab your throat for gonorrhea because it's a site-specific infection. And once you start having, you know, like people don't think about it. They just go to the doctor, they give you a urine test, they think, oh, I'm good. Yeah, but how many fucking people have you eaten out, or what? Like you got it in your throat, sort of kind of smells. Like I can smell it from over here. Like let's get you checked,
right?
And let's get you on some meds.
Yeah.
Hold on 7 days. So I just think that we don't have the culture here that supports an open, honest, fucking in your face. Like it doesn't have to be in your face.
Not even in your face. Like just a dialogue about sexual health.
Just a dialogue about it.
And you weren't even raised here. So like, I mean, I was raised here in Utah and I was raised Mormon and we did not talk about sex at all whatsoever.
Right.
The only thing that you ever talked about with sex is that it happens after marriage. And that's it. Literally, I didn't even know, like, I think there's males, like specifically Justin, he knows the name of female parts better than I do. He said something about one of the female parts one day and I was like, what part is that? You know, because like literally my family, we did not even talk about the biological parts, you know, let alone sex or like the repercussions of sex, the emotionality connected with sex. For most, some people have no emotionality connected with sex, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, you know, but that's something that each person has to figure out on their own. And if you can't even have conversations about it, then it sets you up for a world of hurt. Justin, what was your family talking about sex growing up?
I was raised Catholic, so we have strong Catholic guilt for everything. So not only did we not talk about it, but it was very, very bad, right?
Yeah.
Were you also an altar boy?
No, never had the altar boy experiences.
I was an altar boy. I didn't mean to interrupt. I could see you on the altar, like ringing the bell at the wrong time, like I did, and getting fucking looked at.
We're on a podcast. We can't help it. Go on, Justin.
I was never the altar boy, but I was raised Catholic, and so it was always very bad. And you know, the reality was that the more I was shamed around it, the more I was interested in it. Right. So I've always kind of been in that situation where it was like, you're not even supposed to think about that. Oh, well, guess what I'm going to think about every day now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like being told what to do. I still don't like being told what to do. And so that shaming, guilt around that kind of, not only did it push me into like the closet of something that I can't talk about, but I couldn't ask questions. So even now talking about certain things like gonorrhea in the back of the throat, I was kind of like, oh shit, you should get a swab for that. Like, oh really? But like the female body parts, when we start talking about that, those are things that I've just learned when we start talking about like vagina. We were talking about a vagina mask, Mindy, and I was like, it's actually a vulva. And I had another lady that talked to me about that, right? And so it's like, you know, there's so much around sexuality, sexual health, even the anatomy and the relationships between men and women sexually, that we just don't talk about. It surprises me, you know, how much dysfunction there obviously has to be that is just left unsaid. Nobody talks about it. Even my 11-year-old son went to maturation this year, and I think, Mindy, you have the same experience. coming up next year for Iz, but the maturation, he had all these questions, and he was so embarrassed about it. And I took a lot of pride in the fact that I could actually have a conversation with him about sexuality and about healthy ways of engaging with a girl, and if he had questions, to come talk to me or to talk to his mom, and don't be embarrassed. And in fact, I was trying to talk to him so much about it that he was just like, no, Dad, that's too much. Like, he didn't want anything to do with it. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to, so I was like that guy that's like, if you have any questions around this, or, because I wanted to make sure he has the information, and he was just like, no, I'm good. So it's interesting now to learn from those mistakes that we were raised with, recognize that they're mistakes, and be able to do better with our own children. And that's my goal now,
Yeah. So Patrick, tell us.
I lost you guys there for a minute.
Oh, well, can you hear us now?
Did you lose me again?
Can you hear us now?
I'll sit out here.
Okay.
I can hear you now. I'm hoping this is a better connection.
Okay. Your face is just.
Okay. Ask that question again. I'm sorry.
So, Justin was just talking about how, like we can talk differently with our kids about sex than how it was talked about with us. And I was just kind of wondering, so okay, well, wait a minute. Actually, we're getting close to the time we should take our breaks. Maybe we should take our break and then come back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Therapeutic Madness. We have our special guest here today, Mr. Patrick Rezac, a.k.a. Patrick. He is, and he hasn't shared this with you yet, but we're going to get into this part. Patrick is the founder of One Voice Recovery, which is the other organization besides Utah Naloxone that started Syringe Exchange after us. And he actually, like Patrick, he was able to get the exchange going down in Carbon County, which you heard Justin and I talk about Carbon County in our last podcast and how difficult it is. And he just does super amazing work. So Patrick, tell us about how your sexual health played a role in your drug addiction, how it fueled your addiction. Because Patrick has a super crazy ass story. Like, he does not have a normal sexual health kind of story by any fucking stretch of the imagination. And it has been a huge part in fueling his addiction, but it's also been a huge hindrance when not treated properly in his recovery. And I'll let him share those things, but Patrick?
Yes. Well, that's an interesting question.
It was a fully fucking loaded one.
I was trying to be fucking diplomatic about that, but there's just no way to be. I think that sexual health in recovery has been a necessity for me to thrive. I've had to address that issue. I've had to look at ways of being sexual, and sexual health is not just like putting a condom on and wrapping it up. It's like communicating with your partner. It's getting tested for HIV. It's all those things. Oh, and I'm HIV positive.
And plus, it's also about, like, from a therapeutic level, it's absolutely about how to engage in your intimate relationships in a healthy way. Because if people think that sex is what relationships are about, there's your fucking problem right there, bud.
There's your problem right there.
That's where it's going fucking downhill. And
so my sexual, my
unless it's just your fuck buddy, maybe,
But even then, you have to have good communication and good agreements.
You have to have good communication. But relationships, sex does not equal intimacy. Intimacy does not always equal sex.
As a matter of fact, the sexual...
And for real relationships that have real meaning and depth to them, it's about way more than sex.
It's right. Absolutely.
And usually people are looking for some kind of connection through sex, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. That's why I was saying earlier, like, you have to look at what need you're trying to meet, because there's probably a better way to meet it. And then you can move into that as you want to. But I'm also not shaming people. If you want to go fucking have a one-night circus, do it.
Go do it.
Let's support you in that endeavor so that you can manage that effectively. But what sex addiction,
and in a healthy way.
I'm not going to say sex addiction, but what I'll say that sex did was, one, it rescued me. It provided an outlet to escape domestic violence from a very crazy relationship that I was in. And so I started doing drag shows, and I would go out, and then I found that I looked really passable, and I looked good, and I got a lot of attention. And then my partner at the time, he was not attracted to me like that. So this other part of me was sort of born in that moment for safety. But when we go out by ourselves like this, we get in fights, and we would, throw punches, and I lost every time except the last fight. I fucking won big time in the last one. But all up until the last one, I lost every time. He was way bigger than I was. And I've only had 2 boyfriends in my life, and one of them was this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But so sexuality provided me a safe outlet and safety. And the drag piece of my life and the female impersonation shows and all of that was a safety mechanism. And so
Patrick is striking as a woman, absolutely striking.
And I want to jump in right there and talk about
thank you
about
You're
that,
welcome.
just from the fact of and I've heard this from several men in that community. There is a high rate of domestic violence between gay male relationships. That's not really talked about. And so I think it's awesome that you're sharing that, Patrick.
Thank you. I think it is not talked about. It's sort of accepted. As a community, we accept that this occurs, and we already have, as a bisexual guy, I've got some stigma on one side, and then I've got some stigma on the other side. I usually have no problems making friends and having people that that I can just be myself around. I'm just myself, and I don't really fucking apologize for that. But it is not talked about, and it's so detrimental. And when you're a man and you go through that, I'll tell you what happened when I didn't even call the police before. I should have, but
when you were assaulted.
Yeah, because I knew what would occur, and this happened in Oregon. I was 25 at the time, and when this occurred, they would have been would have harassed us, is what would have happened. Even when I drop kicked him down our stairs and he broke bones and all this stuff, which was my comeback. Which I don't want to be a proponent of violence, but he had it coming. And I don't mind that I fought back the last time and won. So I'm not trying to glorify that, but it was an empowering moment for me to not accept treatment for men like that, period.
Yeah, don't accept treatment from anybody like that. Because now I just have to say something really quick. We also don't talk about women being domestically violent toward men. And in fact, there's such a stigma, like you let a chick kick your ass, and not only that, so men don't have a safe place to talk about it, but not only that, but for some reason we glorify crazy bitches. We're like, yeah, well, she's fucking crazy, but she's mine. Well, she's a fucking lunatic and get rid of her. And if she doesn't fucking work, and if she doesn't bring 50% to the table, bye, bitch, because she's just as useless as fucking a useless guy is. She is a scrub, but a female.
Right.
And women don't get to beat on men any more than men get to beat on women.
But I think it's as equally as damaging. Like men may lash out physically more than women, but women, in my experience with women that were like that, lashed out at me more emotionally and withholding and manipulating me and trying to power play me in other ways. Yeah. And when you're wrapped up, when my mind is wrapped up in a value that I'm only lovable if I'm sexual, women have a lot of power over me in a relationship. And they know that. They've been able to pick up on that. And so they use that to control me. And so when they know that that's what my core belief about myself, it's been exploited over and over again with women. And it's been a very painful process to go through that. And the only way that can really be worked out is if both partners, myself and my girlfriend or my boyfriend or whoever the fuck I'm in love with or partnered up with at the time, can really have an open, really honest dialogue about what that looks like. But a lot of people don't even know that they have those core beliefs to begin with. And how do you even get to those core beliefs? Everything's so thinking errors and behavior. But for me, my life, I have to look at my core beliefs and how they get in the way of my happiness and functioning, and how they define my perspectives, which ultimately dictate how I treat people.
Yeah. And or how you let yourself be treated, wouldn't you say?
How I let myself be treated. Yeah.
Because you're talking about negative core beliefs. So I've been to treatment 5 times myself. So I'm really quite aware of my negative core beliefs and I know where they came from. And my negative core belief is that I'm just not enough, which is wild because anybody who looked at me would be like, Mindy, you're way more than enough. Right. Yeah. But it not only fuels my self-destructive behavior, which is inability to trust. Because if I feel like I can't trust somebody, I'll just cut them right the fuck out of my life. And to me, I feel like that's a good thing to do, but I know sometimes it's not, And it causes me to be in relationships where my partner, and this has happened over and over again in my life, right? So I've chosen to participate in relationships where I'm never valued for what I really bring to the table, and it self-perpetuates that self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm just not enough. Right. And it's not that I'm not enough. It's that the person that I'm trying to get it from it's not me.
Well, and everything we do is a perfect mirror.
Myself, by putting myself in these positions based upon these negative core beliefs, you know, and I think sometimes I'm just trying to prove to myself that I am enough, because if this person will love me or treat me in this way, then that must mean that finally I'm enough, you know, when that's just not the answer. I was always enough.
We mirror back and forth, we project, and we counteract with, like, you know, that opposites attract. No, fucking like attracts. And so if I really have a core belief that that's it, I'm going to attract people that are going to validate that for me. And if they don't validate that for me, I'm going to kick them to the fucking curb, because they're either easy or they're too over dependent on me, and codependent, or whatever you want to say that. So I think it's ingrained in One Voice Recovery. It's been at the focal point of our recovery groups and the things that, you know, when we go out to treatment centers or any, you know, I used to go up to the University of Utah, the class of social work, once a quarter, and teach that class about HIV and what it looks like to thrive with HIV. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm also HIV positive. There's a consequence too from my drug use and from that belief that I was destined to die young, and that I deserved to be punished, and that I fucking deserved HIV, and I welcomed it when that occurred in my life. Because
how do you feel like you punish yourself when you just said that? Like, how do you feel like you punish yourself? Because I know you punish yourself through some of your behaviors. Would you be willing to share that with the viewers about how that plays out in your life? Yeah.
I go to some very dark places when I use drugs, and I have this dark shadow self that I've made friends with, and I don't judge anymore. So it's not, I think that I can share. I mean, my sexual relating used to look like this. I would go to Oakland, and I would park my car, and I would be dressed like a chick, and I'd be smoking a crack pipe, and I'd have my meth pipe. I'd have porn playing on one DVD player and pictures of myself dressed up, pornographic, on one DVD player. I'd have my 12-pack of beer in the car, and I'd sit in my car and wait for someone to approach my car. They would approach, and I'd say, hey, you want to go fucking kick it and party? And they'd say yes, and we'd go. 99% of the time, that worked. 1% of the time, maybe I had a bad experience where they're like, oh my God, what are you doing out here, you fucking crazy fuck? But most of the time, they wanted to get down and party hardcore, so we did. And I found myself in some very precarious situations in that way, because, you know, that's not safe.
Yeah.
And so what I was doing was I was objectifying these people and using them as a tool to punish myself, which says a lot about what I thought about them, which is fucking crazy. It means that I'm not valuing them as humans. I'm not valuing them and what they bring to the table in a valid way. And I'm just using them as an object to punish myself. And they're doing it to me too. So it's this process. It's this process. It just sort of happens over and over again. And the other ways that I punish myself are I've sabotaged success in my life a couple of times, where I was about to get really, really there with my music or other things. And well, fuck, I blew it up at One Voice Recovery even. You know what I mean? I mean, I blew it up at One Voice Recovery even. Like, I was given options to go back, and I fucking put them to the task. And I needed to be fired, and I was. And that's when I finally decided, like, okay, I'm going to make some changes now. Because I couldn't be micromanaged into it. Are you in the car yet to go to detox? Like, leave me the fuck alone already. Like, I'm trying to get there, you know? And so that's how it looks. I punish myself. I used to. I don't anymore. I used to punish myself in those ways. And then the other, I think, major way is I will punish myself by attracting and allowing myself to be in relationships when I realize that they are not going to be healthy. I don't have the balls to leave them. I stay engaged, and I just walk right into the fire. And when I walk right into the fire, a lot of damage happens on my end and for everybody involved.
What do you do with healthy relationships in your life? Like, when you have a healthy relationship come along, what do you do? Do you sabotage that typically?
No, not anymore. I used to. My former partner and I had a healthy relationship, and before that, I had a couple. So I would go from, you know, we would argue that it's toxic. I'm not going to go there on here, but I've had strings of healthy relationships enough to know, like, oh, this is amazing, and I know that this is, you know, but they're not based on sex. We wait. There's a lot of communication. We talk about things that aren't related to sexuality. I'm capable of doing that 100%. And I actually am pretty conservative. At the core of me, I'm pretty fucking conservative when it comes to these things. In relationship, I'm loyal. I'm into monogamy because I've done the swinging stuff. I don't want to swing with someone I love anymore. Fuck that. It's not even something I want to do. So that hasn't
I'm not a fan of swinging at all. To each their own. If other people want to swing, that's fine. But as a therapist, I've not one time seen it work. Yeah. And also, like, I'm a person who's super monogamous, so I very much value my partner. And I feel like if you value and respect your partner, like, to me, maybe it's because of how I was raised, I'm not even attracted to other people, like, let alone fuck somebody else, because it's, to me, it's not the thing. So it's hard for me to understand partners who share like that. But I often don't see it work, though. I've never seen it work in a healthy way.
I've seen it work with some people that I know that are polyamorous, and but they're not swinging, though. It's not swinging.
Yeah. I haven't seen polyamory work either. But that's by the time they're on my couch, though. Like,
right.
You know, and I still am not a fan. But that's for me. For me, I'm not a fan. If other people want to do that, good for them.
Yeah.
But so you're not really a swinger. You're more of a monogamy person.
No.
And you're able to have healthy relationships.
Totally. Yeah. Yes. Because this doesn't run in your life. This doesn't run me anymore. But what I do find on a daily basis, if things come up, it's usually not. So what I do to counter these beliefs is I engage in activities that are like antonyms to the belief. For example, like, instead of going out and having a one-night stand, I would call a friend that I really love and care about and have a meaningful conversation and practice being vulnerable. I would share something if it was helpful for someone else that might help them, if it meant being vulnerable to walk through that. I do things that totally that validate my worth that are opposite to that. I still love sexuality. I think it's important, and I think that I'm not ashamed of being a sexual person, but there's a balance, and people will only love me if I'm sexual is bullshit. No, people all day long show me love and value, and I show that to myself all day long without having to be sexual. The other thing that I don't really do anymore that I used to do a lot of is objectify myself with my stories. When I go to Wise Guys and book it for an hour to talk about my crazy life to make people laugh, I'll let you know when I'm doing that, because that's the outlet for that. But I no longer am doing that in my regular daily affairs to objectify myself, because that creates a screen and a mask to who I really am. And I want people to know the real me and the multi-layered me. There's a lot of layers to me. I'm a very rich person. I'm a very compassionate person. I love what I do. Like, I have a purpose. I'm aligned with it, and that's what feeds my soul, you know. And so those I thrive in my life in those ways when I'm not being directed by core beliefs that are self-defeating, you know. And I had an experience last year that was very profound for me. I don't know if you want me to go into that, but
do you want to? You can go into that.
I mean,
if you feel comfortable doing so, please do.
I'm going to share it because I don't think that people understand how much our belief systems will play into getting us into the spaces that we get into. And when we look outside of ourselves to a recovery fellowship or a program or this or that to provide validation for us as individuals, and we don't meet those expectations and we become isolated, it causes a lot of problems for a lot of people. I can attest to that. I know you can too, because we've seen it. But I think the biggest shift for me, I tried to end my life last year, and I made it to a point, and I didn't have this history. I've never struggled with suicide ideation or depression, and I've worked with people for a long time that were suicidal and had that, and had suicide ideation in their families and had suicides in their families. So it's not something I ever related to or understood. I knew the statistics were that most people that carry that out it's an impulsive decision. Mm-hmm. I understand that now, because at the point at which this happened, everything was coming together, and I just couldn't take one more fucking call from anyone that was not rooted in love. And I couldn't deal with myself, and I was just watching this tragedy in my life unfold, and I saw it coming at me like a fucking freight train. And so within the 4-hour period, I made this choice, and I went out and took action to make this choice. And I did a hot shot, and I don't like opiates. I fucking hate heroin. I can't stand it. When I used drugs, it was meth or cocaine or both, but I didn't like heroin. I don't like opiates. And so I made the choice to do a hot shot. And
can you explain to people what a hot shot is in case they don't know?
The hot shot is a shot of really any substance that is enough to be fatal. And so I did a lot of meth, and I put a lot of heroin, and I just, because I don't do heroin, I figured this is going to do it. And I struggled with it for about an hour, going back and forth, looking at it, and trying to reach for the phone to make a couple of calls. And I would reach for the phone, and then I just, I felt really isolated, and I didn't feel like I had a lot of support around me, even though the perception is that I had an army of people helping me. It's not true. But the other thing though is I'm really destructive when I'm using drugs, and I'm very hurtful. I'm very angry. So what I recognized through all this experience was how much anger was fueling my life as well. And how the anger was creating a barrier for me to actually get rid of the core beliefs that were just defeating. And so those were layers upon layers of my personal work during the last, year. Even though I used drugs, back and forth through the last year, I engaged in a very meaningful personal work process. But as soon as I did the shot, I regretted it immediately. And all that anger was not present. I was thinking about my parents. I was thinking about my daughter. I was thinking about my daughter's mom. And I was thinking about my former partner, her daughter, and our pets. And I was thinking about my brother and my cousins. And I was thinking about all the people that really I love and care about. And I went to sleep. I wasn't angry though, but what got me to that point was extreme fucking anger. I was so angry at myself and everybody around me. And I woke up. And then I was incredibly embarrassed and ashamed of myself. So much so that I didn't even have the capacity to get up and move and go to the bathroom. And I didn't know how I was going to get from that moment to the next moment because I was so incredibly ashamed of myself that I would take that kind of action against myself. And I knew that people were relying on me. I knew that people in the community loved me. And I know that I have relationships in the community that I've been helpful to people. I know that I know my value and my worth, but at that moment I didn't have any. But then all of a sudden, I looked around and I was like, holy fuck, it didn't work. I'm alive. And my takeaway point for me and my message is at the end of my life, I know what I'm going to be thinking about because I was there. So I know that I'm going to be thinking about, do the people in my life know that I love them? Do the people I encounter every day in a daily interaction, do they know, I don't even need to know them, but do they know that when I look at them and I say, hey, what can I do for you today? That I fucking love them. And even in recovery, when I'm doing well, I know that when I call people, they look at the phone and they're like, oh my God, what does he want? Oh my God, is he going to be aggressive? Is he going to be loud? Is he going to be demanding? Because I can be really ruthless to get where I want to go and get done what I want to have done. And I don't want to be a liability on people anymore. I want to advocate for people, and people should just accept that I'm going to be a little bit colorful and dynamic, and that's cool. If they can't handle me, that's their problem.
Yeah, they're not your people.
They're not my people, but when at the end of my life, when I'm gone from this world, I want people to be able to fucking go, that motherfucker loved me. I don't care what I did. I don't care what I said. I don't care what I put him through. I don't care any of that. He always made me know that he fucking loved me. And that's what matters to me now in my life. I'm not perfect at it. I still can be a fucking dick on a daily basis. And I have to remind myself that it's just really about love. And as cliche as that sounds, for me, that's what that experience taught me. It's just about love. And I feel good about where I'm at. And I'm sharing this because if there's any one person that's watching this that will know, I made it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I made it. I love my life. I love my relationships with people. I still love the people that I've been mad at. I don't even care about any of that. It's worth it. Just in that moment, if I would have reached for the phone, I probably would have made a different choice. And there are people that are in this situation right now all over the world and all over our country that are where I was, that are thinking about it. And they're going to do it. They're going to fucking do it, you guys. So we have to do better at how we meet people when they struggle. If we're angry about that, it's not their fucking problem. We need to get our own support system. Yeah. And we need to do our own work, because we can't desert people, even though people are desert worthy in the moment because they're hard to deal with. Yeah. So I just don't want people to make that choice, man. I'm on Facebook. Look me up on Facebook. If anyone's at that point, fucking call me. Hit me a message. I will make time to talk to you. Just straight up. I don't care what time of night it is. I don't care what it is. If you're at that point where you're going to do what I did, fucking don't do it. I would answer the phone for anyone.
Patrick, I'm so grateful that you were willing to share that part of your story with us. And it means a lot, because there are people who are struggling, and that just need to know that somebody else has been in the position they've been in, that somebody gives a shit, that, you know, that it's possible to be in that place and to be in a completely different place, even the next day, you know, that there is always hope that still exists. We're starting to run low on time. I know that. I wanted to check in with Justin because we've had so much good stuff going on. And Justin, tell us, what are your thoughts on this podcast?
Well, I'm very appreciative of you just being willing to share your story, Patrick, and talk about some things that you know, a lot of people just wouldn't talk about, right? Being able to share your pain. It's not easy to share things that are hurtful, share emotional experiences in general, especially in this type of format. So I know I'm very appreciative of you just coming and sharing your story. It's been interesting to hear the way that you talk about certain things and finding commonality in experiences and emotions and the range of that. You know, even though we're in very different like lifestyles and patterns of the things that maybe we do on a day-to-day basis, there's so much commonality there. And I think that's a really clear message for everybody who may be listening, is like, even though you feel like you may be in totally different worlds, there's a lot of commonality between all of us, and there's a lot of things that we all relate to. And so rather than judging the people that you see, you know, in a different struggle or in a different game or in a different setting, like, understand that there's some common ground for all of us. And I think you're right. I think especially right now, there are a lot of people who feel like they're on the edge, right? They're going to lose everything. They don't know where their next meal is going to come from. They don't know how they're going to feed their kids or pay their mortgage or all these things right now. And I think it's important for all of us to realize there's a lot of common ground here, that we can all find, you know, something to relate to and discuss and engage, and really like love the people that are around you, even the people that are struggling, right? And that little, you know, when you say, I can still be a dick and I'm still, you know, I'm working on it. That is very important. That's very important. So
Those are my animals.
I'm very appreciative of today's show. Yeah, and this has been a good eye opener for me. So
thank you. We'll have to get together sometime.
For sure.
Definitely.
You know, we're all in Utah. We can fucking make that happen pretty easily.
We are all in Utah.
Yeah.
And I just want to close with saying this, like, you know, Patrick, obviously, just like so many other people, but definitely you, we have to have you on this show again because there's so much more for us to talk about. And I would like sexual health and sexual health and recovery to be a topic that we talk about again and again. And if you're somebody who struggles with, you know, anything, there is help for everything and everybody out there. And you're not the only person that's like you anyway. And you know what, however you are is totally good. If you're good with how you are, who cares if the world's good with it or not? You know, so make choices that you feel good about at the end of the day. There are people, no matter how you are, that are just like you. You know, you just have to find the right tribe. And we have to start talking about these things because the alternative is really unhealthy and unsafe sexual behaviors, STIs, HIV. There's all sorts of things, you know, unintended pregnancy, all sorts of things as a consequence of sexual health that isn't discussed, you know, and most importantly, because relationships are the basis of everything important in our lives, and we should be talking about sexual health if for no other reason than so we can help people have better, healthier relationships. Because
yes,
love is the answer, and all we need is love.
All we need is love.
All we need is love. Dun, 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 dun. Patrick and I will start singing away. Justin will join in. He's a huge Beatles fan.
Do a fucking metal scream. But there are places for people to get tested for STDs and HIV and hepatitis C. There's test sites. So you can go to our websites, Utah Harm Reduction Coalition, One Voice Recovery, Utah Naloxone, Utah AIDS Foundation. There's a lot of people that are doing some really good work in our community that are, you know, so sexual health is, there's a definition. It would be great to come on again and talk about the definition of sexual health and what all that encompasses as well. Because there's a really good definition. We went to a conference in Denver, and it was a great conference. We didn't spend a whole lot of time in the conference rooms, though. But we were there for the opening day, and you know.
Happened to me once too.
Yeah. So, but But there are places for people to go, and if anybody ever wants to reach out to me and have some private conversations about their life or whatever, I'm more than welcome. I'd be more than happy to do that. And I'm very good at directing people where they need to go to get the help they need. I'm not a therapist. I don't wear that hat anymore. So I will get you to a therapist if you need. Obviously, Mindy could handle that for you. Look at me as a resource. I'm willing to take time to help anybody that needs help. If I can do it, and if I can't, I'll kick them to someone that can, and I'm open about that.
And we're going to put links to all of these amazing organizations in the comments below. And so, Patrick, I want to thank you again for coming on our podcast. Justin, thanks for making time to do this podcast when it's on our regularly scheduled recording time, just so we could get this important information out there. And thanks to our production team who, when we have something important we want to get out there, they just like move heaven and hell to make it happen for us. So, which is also a great album. And so if you haven't listened to Heaven and Hell, so I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to like our page on Facebook, Therapeutic Madness, like the Utah Harm Reduction Coalition page. Go like the One Voice Recovery page. And don't forget to like our video and subscribe on our YouTube channel. And until we meet again, stay mad, my friends.